right, guys, welcome to my kitchen. This is High Country Dan, and we're going to be making one of my favorite backcountry treats today. This has been a staple of mine in the backcountry for the last probably 3 years, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this. So before we get started, I have to give credit where credit is due. This recipe actually is derived from Stealthy Hunter, and it is his Ryan Lamper's Mountain Candy sweet potato leather recipe, and I've modified it, added some things that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. I'm going to show you my process on how I make it, and this is awesome. Honestly, probably my favorite backcountry treat and fuel for hunting in the backcountry, especially when I'm doing backpacking trips where I'm back there for 7 to 10 days, and even just day trips. It's a nice snack to have in your backpack. For those of you that don't know, I started carnivore about 10 months ago. And carnivore has changed my life. I love it. I'm not going to go into a deep rabbit hole of carnivore itself and what that looks like. But obviously this treat, this backcountry fuel, this food is not carnivore specific. And so I think it's important for me to share with you guys my experiences on carnivore in the backcountry. Carnivore, again, has been awesome. I'm going to put out some videos on why it's so great and what it's changed in my health, in me. I'm obviously a pretty tall, slender guy, so me going on carnivore was not to lose weight or anything like that. It was more along the lines of reducing inflammation in my body. I had Crohn's disease. I no longer have Crohn's disease as a result of going on carnivore diet, and other things as well, health things that I've done to change my healthy habits and a healthy lifestyle. But at the end of the day, when I went hunting in the backcountry on carnivore, I was really struggling to get enough energy. Again, I'm pretty lean. I don't have a lot of fat storage. And so for my body to maintain the level of energy that I need when I'm backcountry hunting, I found out last spring during bear season, it was really hard. In fact, I was crashing. I just did not have enough energy in the backcountry on carnivore to be successful. Now, part of that is I didn't have a bunch of good backcountry meals that were strictly carnivore, that were loaded in fats and calories to maintain my energy levels. I still struggle to do that. It's really hard. I don't have a freeze dryer, so I have to rely on friends to freeze dry meals for me. But at the end of the day, I needed something to give me energy in the backcountry that was good, clean food that my body could digest, that doesn't really disrupt my carnivore systems. And this is it. So let's get into Mountain Candy and what it is. All right, so on carnivore, again, the Mountain Candy has been a huge staple of mine. And so let's just jump right into the main ingredients. I'll throw the ingredients in a comment below. I'll have links to all of the products that I use in this video and how to make it. There's a couple of things that you need to make this. First and foremost is you've got to have some basic tools like a peeler, not that difficult. Over here, I've got a food processor, which hopefully you can see. And then over here on this side of the kitchen and down here, I've got my Instant Pot and a dehydrator, and I'll show you up closes of those more here in just a moment. But let's get down to the ingredients list and what you're going to need for the ingredients. So the first thing you're going to need is 2 really good, nice, sizable, I like kind of the rounder shape, yams or sweet potatoes, whatever you want to call them. They're technically not a sweet potato, they're a yam, but you want to get ones that are really nice and bright in orange color. And for my recipe, for my dehydrator, I've got a 5-tray Lem dehydrator, and so 2 kind of really large sweet potatoes seems to be perfect. Now, for the Ryan Lamper's version of the sweet potato leather, the Mountain Candy, really all Ryan uses is sweet potatoes, applesauce, and a little bit of honey. I like to make my own applesauce. So what I'm going to use in this recipe is 2 fairly large Fuji apples. You can use any kind of apple, whatever you like. I kind of like the sweet to tart ratio of these Fuji apples. And so that's what we're going to use. I use, again, 2 large. Sometimes the Fuji apples are pretty small, so you might have to use 3. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, use what you got, use what you like, use what you want. For this recipe, I'm also going to use some strawberries. I've got some really ripe, ready to go strawberries here, and we're going to peel a couple of those, not peel them, but dice up a couple of those and throw those in there as well since I have them. The next ingredient obviously is honey. This here is local honey. This actually comes from my neighbor, so I'm really excited to use some local honey. We're going to use a little bit of cinnamon in this guy. You can use pumpkin spice. I've used that before. It turned out really good. You can use also pure maple syrup. Not an absolute must, but it gives it a nice little extra flavor. Again, if you're going more for the carnivore, you can eliminate these sugars and just stick with the honey, since honey is on carnivore. And then the last and final ingredient is a really good apple juice. I technically or usually buy apple cider. This is the treetop version of the Honey Crisp, no sugar added. This is really important, at least for me. I don't want any additional flavors. I don't want natural flavors added. That whole natural flavors thing is usually just junk in the food. So just get 100% made from apples. The darker, the thicker, the better, with no sugar added. So again, I want to use my own, I'm going to make my own applesauce. That's what the food processor's for. And so again, you can use just regular apple juice, apple cider. Unfortunately, the store didn't have apple cider in what I normally buy, so I went with this Treetop Honey Crisp, and I think this is going to be really good. So we're going to make sure we shake that up really well, and let's get started here. Really quick. So, do you need to use a food dehydrator, or I'm sorry, a food processor? The short answer is yes. If you've got a really good blender, that might work. In fact, it probably would, the way that we're going to prepare it. But the food processor works exceptional in this case. The other thing is the Instant Pot. Do you have to have an Instant Pot? No, you don't have to have an Instant Pot. You can bake your sweet potatoes. You can boil your sweet potatoes. It just takes a lot longer, and the Instant Pot is so much easier. So, let's break it down. What are we gonna do? First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna peel these guys, both the apples and the sweet potatoes, and we're gonna get those in our fancy little bowl here. All right. All right, so we've got our sweet potatoes here. We're gonna get these peeled really quickly and get them cut up. And again, having a good peeler is really important, something that works fairly well for you. This is also where I also really like this is also why I really like these big round sweet potatoes, because it's a lot easier to peel them and you don't make quite as much of a mess, so it's a lot faster also. Get some of this stuff off here. This in the trash quick. And we will knock out our apples. One thing that makes this apple job a lot easier is a nice little core tool here. We use that guy to just cut out the cores of the apple. And again, that just makes it that much easier. And now we're just gonna cube these up, and I'm gonna grab my Instant Pot. And we've got that bowl. And just gonna chop these guys. Scoop that into this guy. And on to the sweet potatoes. Be careful with sweet potatoes. They can be tricky to cut and can very easily make you cut yourself. So I like to cut them in half, and then let's move this guy out of the way here. Cut them into like 1/4 to 1/2 inch size strips. Totally up to you. You can omit strawberries. I've done strawberries and blueberries. I love blueberries and I use blueberries in my pemmican recipe, but I've found that the strawberries just are better in this recipe versus in, like, I don't put strawberries in my pemmican. It doesn't turn out well. It's just not a good texture. And for whatever reason, they turn out really good and they add a nice flavor profile, especially these really ripe ones. These are delicious, into this guy. Now that we've got all of the major ingredients in there, we're gonna go ahead and start adding some of these ingredients. I've got a measuring cup here, and I'm gonna go ahead and add about 2 cups of this applesauce. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Sorry, not applesauce, apple juice. And I wanna get enough, so as this cooks in the Instant Pot, it's actually gonna add moisture from the steam, so you'll get more than you think, but I want there to be enough liquid. We're gonna do maybe 2, let's see where 2.5 cups gets us. So 2.5 cups gets us about that much. So that's where we're gonna leave that right now. I'm gonna put in about a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then we're gonna grab, I'm gonna throw in about a tablespoon. Let's do 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then we're gonna do about 1/2 cup of honey. Now you can do as much, again, as much maple syrup and honey as you want to. It's totally up to you on how sweet you want it to be. Again, depending on how much sugar's in your applesauce, I'm gonna do about 1/2 cup here of honey. Maybe not even, we'll see. Because I want these natural carbohydrates for when we're in the backcountry. Perfect. Into our pot here. And this is really good honey. We don't want to waste any of this. We're gonna go load this up in the Instant Pot for the next step. All right guys, so we've got our pot in the Instant Pot. I'm gonna make sure that the edge is kind of sealed there. Make sure our seal is good. And we're gonna go ahead and turn this on and set it to manual. And I'm gonna do about 35 minutes. And I'm gonna shut off the keep warm sign. Oops, try that again. And we're gonna let this go ahead and come up to pressure. That's gonna take about 15 minutes, cook for 35 minutes. And then when this is done cooking, hopefully we want to make sure that all the sweet potatoes and those apples and those strawberries are pretty much just completely cooked, boiled down to the point of they're mushy. We're gonna throw those in the food processor and that'll be the next step. All right guys, while we are waiting for our Instant Pot to do its thing, let's talk about dehydrators and the next step once we get done with the food processing. So this is just a really basic LEM food dehydrator. It's a 5 tray, it's got the square trays. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of this dehydrator. It works okay most of the time. The biggest issue that I have with this food dehydrator, and I don't want to turn this into a dehydrator review, is that it overheats and it will stop working in the summertime. So a lot of times, even in the wintertime, I have to keep it outside and running because if it doesn't have enough airflow, it just overheats and it stops working. So anyway, side note, just something to be aware of. All you need is a good dehydrator. If you have any kind of dehydrator with the round trays, Those work as well. Really anything works, but you need to have it set up properly for to do like fruit leather specifically. I started off with these guys. These are silicone mats that I got off of Amazon. The brand on these is Bright Kitchen, and they're almost exactly the same size as my trays here. And so, you know, you can pour, literally they just fit right inside there like that. You can pour out basically the consistency that we want is going to be like an applesauce. Pour those out on here and you can dehydrate them on here. I've since switched from those mats to these guys. I like these a lot better. These are literally just little, they come in a little roll. You can get, I don't know how many you get of them, but probably a half dozen, I think, comes with them. These also, get that out of the way, fit right into these trays. And obviously they're a little discolored because I've used them a lot. The reason I like these better, they fit right inside of these trays for, again, the lem, which is these square trays. But the reason I like them better is that they breathe. They have little tiny microscopic holes in them. The holes are small enough that the liquid can't go through them. And it just makes the fruit roll-ups a lot easier to peel off of here, and they dry a lot faster and more consistent. I've found that these little sheets actually cut my drying time down in half as compared to these silicone mats. And these silicone mats are really expensive. They're, I don't know, I think they're like 12 bucks a piece, and I only got 3 of them. I don't remember, don't quote me on that. It's been a really long time. Whereas you can get a whole roll of these for, I don't know, less than 12 bucks, like 6 bucks maybe. I'll put links in the description of where you can get both the silicone mats and these sheets if you want, but I recommend the sheets. And when we get to that step, I'll show you that. But for now, that's what I use in this dehydrator, and we'll go over dehydrating times and temps when we get to that stage next as well. All right, guys, we are back. We've got our Instant Pot out here, and it took a little bit longer. So we originally put it in for 35 minutes, pulled it out, checked it, and it wasn't quite ready yet. And so I threw it in for another 10 minutes for a total cook time of 45 minutes. I'm gonna grab a little plate here so I can kind of show you what consistency I'm looking for to make sure that it's done. So let's grab a little bowl out of the cabinet here, and we'll grab one of these pieces of the sweet potato specifically. And so I'm going to show you here what we've got. All I want to do is I just want to make sure that it mashes pretty easily and that it's not very hard. You can even taste it a little bit, and you just want to make sure that it's not chunky in any way. It's got good flavor. You can maybe even use a couple more minutes. I'm trying to remember, this is, again, I haven't made this in like 2 years because I had so much left over, but I think that it's pretty close. The apple is definitely ready. Obviously, the smaller the chunks of sweet potato, the easier it is to tell. I'm going to put it in for 5 more minutes, just because I want to make sure that the sweet potatoes are completely done. They're a little fibrous, but it's not bad. So it's still hot, so realistically, it's not going to take long for this to come back up to pressure. We'll take it over to the Instant Pot, put it back in there, put it in for 5 more minutes. That'll be total cooking time of 50 minutes. And hopefully, by the time that gets done, we'll be ready to rock and roll. All right, guys, we are back, and hopefully you can see me through all the steam coming off of our Instant Pot here. We got everything back. We did a total of 50 minutes. So originally we set it for 35 minutes, pulled it out at 35, wasn't quite done, threw it in for 10, wasn't quite done, threw it in for another 15 minutes. Well, total of 15. So 50 minutes total cook time. This is where we're at. We're gonna pull some out, make sure it's ready to go. It's obviously boiling hot, so we don't wanna burn our mouth. And then we're gonna throw it in the food processor onto this last step. So let's try it out here. Make sure we got one. Blow on a little bit, I can already tell. Perfect. All right, so next step, we're gonna throw it into our food processor here. And for this, I use just one of these little ladle spoons with slotted spoon, whatever you want to call it. There's a couple of different ways you could do this. You could pour this through a strainer and strain out all the solids, because that's really what we want here, is the solids to go into our food processor. A little bit of the liquid, but not too much of the liquid, because we want this to be, again, about the consistency of applesauce. So let's go ahead and get this over here, and we'll start scooping it in to our food processor. And you don't want to overload this guy. Just get it pretty good. You will want to add some liquid to it as we go. So I'm going to grab another little spatula here, and let's get our bowl ready so that when we get this done and processed, we will have a bowl to pour it into. So I'm going to add about, I don't know, not even a quarter of a cup. And again, you want to be careful with how much liquid you add, because you can overdo it on this. All right, so let's pulse this guy out. Put that on there. You need this guy. All right, so that was probably 20 to 30 seconds. It's looking really good. And so let's get you a close-up of that so you guys can see it. That is exactly what we're looking for. Almost like a baby food / applesauce consistency. We'll pour that into our bowl here, and we're just going to repeat the process. All right, so we've got our mixture completely ground up now. We're all done with the food processor. The last step here is to take this wonderful, delicious juice, and we want to save this. You do not want to throw that away. You can strain it out if you want to and get the last remaining bits out of there. But we will refrigerate that, and that makes a really good drink. Or you can even just save it for your next batch. You could throw it in the freezer. Certainly, I guess you could toss it out, but at the end of the day, that's good stuff. Don't throw it away. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Hopefully you can see our consistency. This is what we're looking for. Like I said, it's kind of like an applesauce / baby sauce consistency. And now we're ready to get our food processing trays out. So grab these guys and make sure our plate is nice and square. And then what I like to do is use this guy, this little ladle, and scoop it out, scoop it onto our plate, and let's do 2 scoops and see how that goes. And then I just kind of circle it, or roll it in a circle here. And we want it to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. And you want the thickness on the edges. This is really, really important. You want the thickness on the edges to be about the same thickness as the center. Because if you don't, your edges are going to dry out the same, or dry out, they'll dry out more than the center. And your edges will be brittle and crack, and then it doesn't turn out so good. So I have found that 2 big sweet potatoes like that, along with 2 apples and those strawberries, makes about 4 fruit roll-ups, or fruit leathers, I should say. And then I'm just going to kind of shake it here, and this will help it settle. So just shaking side to side, back and forth. You don't want to go crazy with it, but I'm trying to smooth out some of those lines, and some of that will smooth out as it dehydrates as well. And that's pretty much about it. You guys can see that. You can take a look at the thickness here. Give you a good close-up view. Hopefully you can see what that looks like. And I would say that's anywhere from maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. It's actually a little bit thick on this side. And I'm a perfectionist. I bet you couldn't tell. All right, that one's done. Let's throw that one in the dehydrator and we'll grab the next tray. This one, it's kind of funny. You can see the little purple dots on there. That is from the blueberries that I was dehydrating for my pemmican recipe. And that is another one that I will be bringing to the channel for sure. Hopefully sooner than later. I have a batch ready to go, but I didn't film any of the steps making it. So I want to make sure that I film the steps making it for you guys. So we'll make probably 2 batches here coming up soon, because I want to make sure we've got enough pemmican. Pemmican is what really powers me on carnivore when I'm in the backcountry. But like I said, there's times where you need that energy like right now. And the sweet potato leather, this mountain candy recipe, really gives you that bump of energy that you need. You know, if you're just grinding all day, or you got to make a climb up to a ridge top to do some glassing, you want to make sure that you got that energy. So it's a little thin on this side right here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of keep working it over. And I may have to put a little bit more there, because that will definitely crack out if it's not thicker on that side. All right, number 2 is done. All right, so for settings on your dehydrator, we're going to set it about 140 degrees. And I would suggest that you run them about 4 to 5 hours and then check it, because around that 4 to 5 hour mark, if it's pliable enough where you can peel it off, you need to flip them. I've done it both ways, where I've flipped them and not flipped them. Flipping definitely works best if you can. A lot of times the center, again, is going to be the last part to dry out, and so that will tend to stick to those mats. So maybe you run it 6 to 8 hours. The one thing you want to do is just keep checking it between that 4 and that 8 hour mark, just to make sure that your edges aren't drying out too much. If you're finding that the edges are drying out too much, back off your temperature just a little bit, see if you can get them flipped over, and then keep dehydrating until it's kind of a nice even, that fruit leather consistency and not cracking. If you do over dehydrate it and they do end up turning into chips, it's not the end of the world. You can certainly save them and you can still eat them. They're just not going to roll up as well, and you'll probably have to package them a little bit differently. So, all right, welcome back, guys. It's been 6 hours since we threw the mountain candy into our dehydrator. So let's go ahead and pull the trays out and check and see what if they look like they're done or not, or if they need more time. These are looking really, really good so far. I'll give you a close-up here so you guys can see it yourself. But one of the things that we want to do here is check the center. And I usually just kind of tap it with my fingertip to make sure it doesn't leave any fingerprints or anything like that. But it's still just a little bit sticky and not too dried out. And then we also want to check the edges here and see if the edges are flaking or cracking, and they're not. These are perfectly done. And so that's exactly what we're looking for. Scroll down and give you a view here with the good camera and let you take a look at those. I said this is exactly what we're looking for here. These are perfect. You can see it doesn't leave any fingerprints in the middle, and our edges aren't flaky. I've already peeled this one up off of the mat here, but this is again why I really like to use these dehydrating tray mats instead of the silicone. I feel like you just get a much better consistency. They dry a lot faster, as I mentioned before, And that's perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. Let's grab another tray here and we'll take a look at that one. All right, so this is an undisturbed tray. This is exactly what they look like coming out of the dehydrator. Like I said, the one before I had peeled off, and I'll show you the technique that I use to peel these off here. Just kind of work yourself up on an edge and start to peel it up around like this. And just kind of go around in a circle. And you might find that some of the edges are a little bit crispy and start to flake off, and that's all right. That's no big deal. Just slowly kind of work your way around so that you don't tear it. If you do tear it, it's not the end of the world. But that is exactly what we want. Nice and pliable, and again, no fingerprints in the center. All right, so let's move on to the next step, the fourth step here, which is going to be wrapping them up and preserving them so that we can take them out in the field hunting. Obviously, you're not going to carry this around in your backpack. That would be kind of weird. So a couple of different products that you can use here. I historically have used wax paper in the past to make these. It works really well, but the one thing that I don't like about the wax paper is that wax paper is only waxy on one side usually. This particular wax paper that I bought actually is wax on both sides, so this one would work pretty well. But just be careful if you do use a wax paper. Sometimes there's only wax on one side of it, and what happens is once you put the fruit roll up or the mountain candy on the wax paper and you roll it up, if there's a paper back on one side, the fruit roll up will stick to that, and it can be really tough to get off of there, and it kind of makes a pain to eat. Another option is parchment paper, and I use these parchment baking sheets. That's what I'm going to use this time around, just to try something a little bit different. I haven't used these yet, so I'm going to try these. Here's a pro tip for you guys. Regardless of whether you use parchment paper or wax paper, they're both highly flammable. And why is that a pro tip? Well, if you're in the backcountry and you're hunting, there's a chance that you might need to build a fire, right? Whether that's a campfire, whether that's a fire to cook some food, or for survival. Both parchment paper and wax paper make excellent fire starters. In fact, great fire starters, and I have used them on multiple occasions to start a fire in the backcountry, whether I needed to for warmth or whether I needed to for any other reason. So these parchment baking sheets hopefully will be about the perfect size, and we're just going to lay them down onto this sheet of parchment paper. Again, this is kind of why I like these parchment baking sheets, is because they're almost the exact same size as my dehydrator trays, as you can see here. And the beauty is now we're just going to roll these things up, and I kind of like to start them out on the edge here. And again, if your fruit roll-ups are a little bit crispy, that's fine. If they crack a little bit, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. But we're just going to roll these guys up like so. And then once you get to the end of the paper here, you can just take a pair of scissors and cut off the remaining paper, or you can leave it on there. You got more kindling, I suppose, if you needed it. Cut that off, and you've got one roll, nice and completely done. Now, again, this is kind of long. This really isn't going to fit in your backpack. So what I like to do is take these guys, put them on my block here, and just cut them in half. Sometimes I use scissors, sometimes I use this big knife. Either works really well. And now you've got two rolls that we will put into a Ziploc bag, and there you go. And I normally pack one roll per day. So I've got one for a morning or midday snack and one for an afternoon snack. Sometimes I go through both, sometimes I don't. It just really depends on what you want to use. So that's that. Like I said earlier, being on carnivore, sometimes I struggle to get enough energy in the backcountry. I talked about my pemmican recipe. I'm going to bring that pemmican recipe to you. I'm going to show you guys how to make that as well. Pemmican's a great snack. The problem with it is that I don't get immediate energy from a pemmican bar. Like, you eat it and it's a couple of hours of good sustainable energy, but in the moment of, you know, you got to run up a ridge, or you got to climb a mountain, or you got to go after that game animal, and you got to cover a lot of country quickly, and you need energy like right now, I have found that, you know, these mountain candy rolls really hit the spot and give you that immediate burst of energy that you need. They're gut friendly, they're healthy. That's all I can say about them. So that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video of mountain candy. Again, I would encourage you to check out Stealthy Hunter, Ryan Lampers's recipe. It's online if you need it. I'll post all the ingredients, all the equipment that I used here in this video in the comment section. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit me up. If you want to see my carnivore chili recipe, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll throw that up as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. This is High Country Dan. I'm out.